Fox News Alert, a bipartisan group of senators on Capitol Hill sending a strong warning to Iran. They are introducing a resolution backing the use of U.S. military force to stop Iranian leaders from getting their hands on nuclear weapons.
Does this sound familiar? It should. We have seen this charade play out before our eyes before, haven't we? A decade ago, in the run-up to war with Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets of New York, cities all across the country, indeed all across the world, and war happened anyway. But that was before Occupy. Our creativity, our new way of thinking about protesting, and our crowdsourcing of ideas that make us collectively so much greater than the individual sum of our parts. Iraq was an illegal, immoral war based on outright lies that cost in the range of hundreds of thousands to in the neighborhood of 1 million Iraqi civilian deaths. Chew on that. And it cost so much money that we did not have on hand to spend that it is clearly a contributing factor in the economic crisis that gave birth to the 99% movement to begin with. So, among the many reasons why I think the Occupy movement should make stopping the war with Iran a top priority, I will share with you just two for your consideration. Please take this to your working groups, your GAs, share on your social networks of choice for consideration and discussion. It's that important. The United States entering into war with Iran, either ahead of, behind, or in lockstep with Israel, is both immoral, and it will increase the wealth divide in the United States in a way that will set back the 99% movement's goal for a more equitable distribution of resources. To be sure, there are many, many more reasons than this not to go to war with Iran, but for now, let us just focus on those two. Let's take the last first. What if you're among the many in the 99% who say, wait a second, look, this war shit is awful and everything, I get it, but we have our hands full at home. A super rich class getting even wealthier on the backs of the rest of us, evil corporations sucking the life out of the economy, families being foreclosed on. The list of domestic and local issues to fix does not end, and now Occupy is supposed to stop a war? Well, yes, our economy is in the toilet in part because we have waged wars this past decade without the money to spend on them. Don't take my word for it. Here's at least another old white dude with his head screwed on straight tell you the truth.
But the reality is that the deficit was caused by 2 wars unpaid for. It was caused by huge tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country. It was caused by a recession as a result of the greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior on Wall Street.
True, Bernie. In 2012 alone, taxpayers forked over $121 billion for total Iraq and Afghanistan war spending. Multiply that by 10 years, now add projected costs of a war with Iran, a country that could actually fight back on its own. Never mind if Russia or China decide that an Israel-US war is one in which they should throw their might into. And the equation is not only expensive to the point that human suffering will increase far beyond the actual field of battle, but it makes one wonder if these war-hungry heads of state are not plotting to prove the Mayans correct. So there is the money thing. Think of the health care, the community centers, the teacher salaries, the mortgage forgivenesses, and you'll forgive me for saying so, the amount of hand-rolled cigarettes that all that money could buy. And we have to stop this war. Still not convinced? Let's chat about the morality of the coming war with Iran. Even among those who can agree with Matt Taibbi's assessment that Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is, quote, nuts and a monstrous dick, and he should not be allowed to have nuclear weapons, end quote, the fact of the matter is this: nobody in the intelligence community of note is saying that Iran is pursuing nuclear weapons. Nobody. But who needs intelligence community when there is AIPAC, who can get politicians to work for the greatest purveyor of violence on earth today to participate in a bipartisan pageant like this?
Distraction by negotiation while you become a nuclear power is not an option for you. And containment of a nuclear Iran is not an option for us.
We're for real. There's still time. Do the right thing, and you can avoid consequences that are unpalatable to you as well as a last resort for us.
We may take comfort in that these members of Congress and the Senate are part of a body with an all-time low approval rating, but what about the mainstream media currently falling over itself to beat the loudest drum for war, including Erin Burnett of CNN, seen here auditioning for the role of Miss Orwell, USA.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett, and out front tonight, Iran's threat to the United States in the United States, right here at home. Now, as we said last night, no one buys Iran's claim that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. But consider this. A high-ranking Israeli official said earlier this month that Iran is working on missiles with a range of some 6,000 miles. That is far enough to hit the United States of America.
One thing different this time around is that even with pundits and politicians pounding the drums for war, the intelligence community is calling for restraint. That's right, this is the same intelligence community that ran the truth through a Cirque du Soleil and twisting machine, fed it to Colin Powell, and produced charts, graphs, and 27 8x10 color glossy photographs with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence, proving that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Remember that? You don't believe me? How about listening to Ray McGovern? He was a senior CIA analyst serving administrations from JFK through Bush 1. Among his duties, while a federal employee, he served the daily intelligence brief in the White House for 4 years. When I spoke with him for an Occupodcast plug yesterday, this is how he summed up the intelligence community's threat assessment with regard to Iran.
This time, the intelligence community is holding firm. They decided, my former colleagues decided to their great credit, at the end of November 2007, now what's that? That's over 4 years ago, right? They decided in November of 2007 that Iran had stopped working on a nuclear weapon at the end of 2003, okay, and had not resumed work on that weapon. What does that mean? Well, that means that all the predictions that Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon in just 5 years, or maybe it's 3 years, or maybe it's 2 years, all that was spurious because they stopped at the end of 2003. Now, was that a disputed judgment? No, it was unanimous. All 16 U.S. intelligence agencies pronounced themselves with this conclusion, quote, with high confidence, end quote. Now, does that judgment persist? It does. As recently as 2-3 weeks ago, the head of national intelligence said the same thing.
If a new world is in fact possible, if we are in fact unstoppable, we need to leverage our might and bring into being a new type of protest campaign that staves off a war with Iran. That, in fact, reverses the homicidal bull in a geopolitical China shop that is U.S. foreign policy altogether and replace it with a world that places human needs here and elsewhere above corporate greed.